Talk to anyone is the hard way, but how to make anyone charismatic on you is harder than talk to anyone. Here is the solution. This will help you.
Part 2. What do I say after I say hello? Small talk, your verbal welcome mat. Just as the first glimpse should please their eyes, your first words should delight their ears. Your tongue is a welcome mat embossed with either welcome or go away. To make your conversation partner feel welcome, you must master small talk. Small talk. Can you hear the shudder? Those two little words drive a stake in the hearts of some otherwise fearless and undaunted souls. Invite them to a party where they don't know anyone and it mainlines queasiness into their veins. If this sounds familiar, take consolation from the fact that the brighter the individual, the more he or she detests small talk. When consulting for Fortune 500 companies, I was astounded. Top executives, completely comfortable making big talk with their boards of directors or addressing their stockholders, confessed they felt like little lost children at parties where the prater was less than prodigious. Small talk haters, take further consolation from the fact that you are in star-studded company. Fear of small talk and stage fright are the same thing. The butterflies you feel in your stomach when you're in a room full of strangers flutter around the tummies of top performers. Pablo Casals complained of lifelong stage fright. Carly Simon curtailed live performances because of it. A friend of mine who worked with Neil Diamond said he insisted the words to Song Sung Blue, a tune he'd been crooning for 40 years, be displayed on his teleprompter, lest fear freeze him into forgetfulness. Is small talkophobia curable? Someday, scientists say, communications fears may be treated with drugs. They're already experimenting with Prozac to change people's personalities, but some fear disastrous side effects. The good news is that when human beings think and genuinely feel certain emotions, like confidence, they have specific techniques to fall back on. The brain manufactures its own antidotes. If fear and distaste of small talk is the disease, knowing solid techniques like the ones we explore in this section is the cure. Incidentally, science is beginning to recognize it's not chance or even upbringing that one person has a belly of butterflies and another doesn't. In our brains, neurons communicate through chemicals called neurotransmitters. Some people have excessive levels of a neurotransmitter called norepinephrine, a chemical cousin of adrenaline. For some children, just walking into a kindergarten room makes them want to run and hide under a table. As a tot, I spent a lot of time under the table. As a preteen and an all-girls boarding school, my legs turned to spaghetti every time I had to converse with a male. In high school, I once had to invite a boy to our school prom. The entire selection of dancing males lived in the dormitory of our brother's school, and I only knew one resident, Eugene. I had met Eugene at summer camp the year before. Mustering all my courage, I decided to call him. 2 weeks before the dance, I felt the onset of sweaty palms. I put the call off. 1 week before, rapid heartbeats set in. I put the call off. Finally, 3 days before the big bash, breathing became difficult. Time was running out. The critical moment, I rationalized, would be easier if I read from a script. I wrote out the following. Hi, this is Leil. We met at camp last summer, remember? I programmed in a pause where I hoped he would say yes. Well, National Cathedral School's prom is this Saturday night, and I'd like you to be my date. I programmed in another pause where I prayed he'd say yes. On Thursday before the dance, I could no longer delay the inevitable. I picked up the receiver and dialed. Clutching the phone, waiting for Eugene to answer, my eyes followed perspiration droplets rolling down my arm and dripping off my elbow. A small salty puddle was forming around my feet. Hello? A sexy, deep male voice answered the dorm phone. In faster than a speeding bullet voice, like a nervous novice telemarketer, I shot out, Hi, this is Leil. We met at camp last summer, remember? Forgetting to pause for his assent, I raced on, National Cathedral School's prom is this Saturday night, and I'd like you to be my date. To my relief and delight, I heard a big, cheerful, Oh, that's great, I'd love to. I exhaled my first normal breath all day. He continued, "I'll pick you up at the girls' dorm at 7:30. I'll have a pink carnation for you. Will that go with your dress? And my name's Donnie." Donnie? Donnie? Who said anything about Donnie? Well, Donnie turned out to be the best date I had that decade. Donnie had buck teeth, a head full of tousled red hair, and communication skills that immediately put me at ease. On Saturday night, Donnie greeted me at the door, carnation in hand and grin on face. He joked self-deprecatingly about how he was dying to go to the prom, so knowing it was a case of mistaken identity, he accepted anyway. He told me he was thrilled when the girl with the lovely voice called, and he took full responsibility for tricking me into an invitation. He made me comfortable and confident as we chatted. First we made small talk, and then he gradually led me into subjects I was interested in. I flipped over Donnie, and he became my very first boyfriend. Donnie instinctively had the small talk skills that we are now going to fashion into techniques to help you glide through small talk like a hot knife through butter. When you master them, you will be able, like Donnie, to melt the heart of everyone you touch. The goal of how to talk to anyone is not, of course, to make you a small talk whiz and stop there. The aim is to make you a dynamic conversationalist and forceful communicator. However, small talk is the first crucial step toward that goal.
Chapter 10. The Mood Match. How to start a conversation without strangling it. You've been there. You're introduced to someone at a party or business meeting. You shake hands, your eyes meet, and suddenly your entire body of knowledge dries up and thought processes come to a screeching halt. You fish for a topic to fill the awkward silence. Failing, your new contact slips away in the direction of the cheese tray. We want the first words falling from our lips to be sparkling, witty, insightful. We want our listeners to immediately recognize how riveting we are. I was once at a gathering where everybody was sparkling, witty, insightful, and riveting. It drove me berserk because most of these same everybodies felt they had to prove it in their first 10 words or less. Several years ago, the Mensa organization, a social group of extremely bright individuals who score in the country's top 2% in intelligence, invited me to be a keynote speaker at their annual convention. Their cocktail party was in full swing in the lobby of the hotel as I arrived. After checking in, I hauled my bags through the horde of happy hour Mensans to the lift. The door separated, and I stepped into a lift packed with partygoers. As we began the journey up to our respective floors, the lift gave several sleepy jerks. I remarked in response to the lift's sluggishness. The lift seems a little flaky. Suddenly, each elevator occupant, feeling compelled to exhibit his or her 132-plus IQ, pounced forth with a thunderous explanation. "It's obviously got poor rail guide alignment," announced one. "The relay contact is not made up," declared another. Suddenly, I felt like a grasshopper trapped in the stereo speaker. I couldn't wait to escape the attack of the mental giants. Afterward, in the solitude of my room, I thought back and reflected that the Mensans' answers were, indeed, interesting. Why then did I have an adverse reaction? I realized it was too much too soon. I was tired. Their high energy and intensity jarred my sluggish state. You see, small talk is not about facts or words. It's about music, about melody. Small talk is about putting people at ease. It's about making comforting noises together like cats purring, children humming, or groups chanting. You must first match your listener's mood. Like repeating the note on the music teacher's harmonica, top communicators pick up on their listener's tone of voice and duplicate it. Instead of jumping in with such intensity, the Mensans could have momentarily matched my lethargic mood by saying, "Yeah, it is slow, isn't it?" Had they then prefaced their information with, "Have you ever been curious why an elevator is slow?" I would have responded with a sincere, "Yes, I have." After a moment of equalized energy levels, I would have welcomed their explanations about the rail guard alignment or whatever the heck it was, and friendships might have started. I'm sure you suffered the aggression of a mood mismatch. Have you ever been relaxing when some overexcited, hot-breathing colleague starts pounding you with questions? Or the reverse, you're late, rushing to a meeting when an associate stops you and starts lazily narrating a long, languorous story. No matter how interesting the tale, you don't want to hear it now. The first step in starting a conversation without strangling it is to match your listener's mood, if only for a sentence or two. When it comes to small talk, think music, not words. Is your listener adagio or allegro? Match that pace. I call it making a mood match. Matching the mood can make or break the sale. Matching customers' moods is crucial for salespeople. Some years ago, I decided to throw a surprise party for my best friend Stella. It was going to be a triple whammy party because she was celebrating 3 events. 1, it was Stella's birthday. 2, she was newly engaged. And 3, Stella had just landed her dream job. She had been my buddy since our school days, and I was floating on air over her birthday engagement congratulation bash. I heard that one of the best French restaurants in town had an attractive backroom for parties. About 5 p.m. one afternoon, I wafted happily into the restaurant and found the seated maitre d' languidly looking over his reservation book. I began excitedly babbling about Stella's triple whammy celebration and asked to see that fabulous backroom I'd heard so much about. Without a smile or moving a muscle, he said, "The room is in the back. You can go see it if you like." Crash! What a party pooper! His morose mood kicked all the party spirit out of me, and I no longer wanted to rent his stupid space. Before I even looked at the room, he lost the rental. I left his restaurant vowing to find a place where the management would at least appear to share the joy of the happy occasion. Every mother knows this instinctively. To quiet a whimpering infant, Mama doesn't just shake her finger and shout, "Quiet, down!" No, Mama picks up baby, Mama cries, "Ooh, ooh, oh," sympathetically matching baby's misery for a few moments. Mama then gradually transitions the two of them into hush-hush happy sounds. Your listeners are all big babies. Match their mood if you want them to stop crying, start buying, or come around to your way of thinking. Technique 10. Make a mood match. Before opening your mouth, take a voice sample of your listener to detect his or her state of mind. Take a psychic photograph to see if your listener looks buoyant, bored, or blitzed. If you ever want to bring people around to your thoughts, you must match their mood and voice tone, if only for a moment.
Chapter 11. Prosaic with Passion. What's a good opening line when I meet people? I was once at a party where I spotted a fellow surrounded by a fan club of avid listeners. The chap was smiling, gesticulating, obviously enthralling his audience. I went over to hearken to this fascinating speaker. I joined his throng of admirers and eavesdropped for a minute or two. Suddenly it dawned on me, the fellow was saying the most banal things. His script was dull, dull, dull. But he was delivering his prosaic observations with such passion. Therefore, he held the group spellbound. It convinced me that it's not all what you say, it's how you say it. Often people ask me, what's a good opening line when I meet people? I give them the same answer a woman who once worked in my office always gave me. Dottie often stayed at her desk to work through lunch. Sometimes, as I was leaving for the sandwich shop, I'd ask her, "Hey Dottie, what can I bring you back for lunch?" Dottie, trying to be obliging, would say, "Oh, anything is fine with me." "No, Dottie," I wanted to scream. "Tell me what you want. Ham and cheese, chicken salad with mayonnaise, peanut butter with sliced bananas. Be specific. Anything is a hassle." Frustrating though it may be, my answer to the opening line question is anything. Because almost anything you say really is okay, as long as it puts people at ease and sounds passionate. How do you put people at ease? By convincing them they are okay and that the two of you are similar. When you do that, you break down walls of fear, suspicion, and mistrust. Why banal makes a bond. Samuel I. Hayakawa was a college president, U.S. senator, and brilliant linguistic analyst of Japanese origin. He tells us this story that shows the value of, as he says, unoriginal remarks. In early 1942, a few weeks after the beginning of World War II, at a time when there were rumors of Japanese spies, Hayakawa had to wait several hours in a railroad station in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. He noticed others waiting in the station were staring at him suspiciously. Because of the war, they were apprehensive about his presence. He later wrote, "One couple with a small child was staring with special uneasiness and whispering to each other." So what did Hayakawa do? He made unoriginal remarks to set them at ease. He said to the husband that it was too bad the train should be late on so cold a night. The man agreed. I went on, Hayakawa wrote, to remark that it must be especially difficult to travel with a small child in winter when train schedules were so uncertain. Again, the husband agreed. I then asked the child's age and remarked that their child looked very big and strong for his age. Again, agreement, this time with a slight smile. The tension was relaxing. After 2 or 3 more exchanges, the man asked Hayakawa, "I hope you don't mind me bringing it up, but you're Japanese, aren't you? Do you think the Japs have any chance of winning this war?" "Well," Hayakawa replied, "your guess is as good as mine. I don't know any more than I read in the papers, but the way I figure it, I don't see how the Japanese, with their lack of coal and steel and oil, can ever beat a powerfully industrialized nation like the United States." Hayakawa went on, "My remark was admittedly neither original nor informed. Hundreds of radio commentators were saying much the same thing during those weeks. But just because they were, the remark sounded familiar and was on the right side so that it was easy to agree with." The Wisconsin man agreed at once with what seemed like genuine relief. His next remark was, "Say, I hope your folks aren't over there while the war is going on." "Yes, they are," Hayakawa replied. "My father and mother and 2 young sisters are over there." "Do you ever hear from them?" the man asked. "How can I?" Hayakawa answered. "Both the man and his wife look troubled and sympathetic. Do you mean you won't be able to see them or hear from them until after the war is over?" There was more to the conversation, but the result was within 10 minutes they had invited Hayakawa, whom they initially may have suspected was a Japanese spy, to visit them sometime in their city and have dinner in their home. And all because of this brilliant scholar's admittedly common and unoriginal small talk. Top communicators know the most soothing and appropriate first words should be, like Senator Hayakawa's, unoriginal, even banal, but not indifferent. Hayakawa delivered his sentiments with sincerity and passion. Ascent from banality. There is no need, of course, to stay with mundane remarks. If you find your company displays cleverness or wit, you match that. The conversation then escalates naturally, compatibly. Don't rush it, or like the Mensons, you seem like you're showing off. The bottom line on your first words is to have the courage of your own triteness, because remember, people tune in to your tone more than your text. Technique 11. Prosaic with passion. Worried about your first words? Fear not, since 80% of your listener's impression has nothing to do with your words anyway. Almost anything you say at first is fine. No matter how prosaic the text, an empathetic mood, a positive demeanor, and passionate delivery make you sound exciting. Anything except liverwurst. Back to Dottie waiting for her sandwich at her desk. Sometimes, as I was walking out the door wondering what to bring her, she'd call after me, "Anything except liverwurst, that is." "Thanks, Dottie. That's a little bit of help." Here's my anything except liverwurst on small talk. Anything you say is fine as long as it is not complaining, rude, or unpleasant. If the first words out of your mouth are a complaint, blam, people label you a complainer. Why? Because that complaint is your new acquaintance's 100% sampling of you so far. You could be the happiest Pollyanna ever, but how will they know? If your first comment is a complaint, you're a griper. If your first words are rude, you're a creep. If your first words are unpleasant, you're a stinker. Open and shut. Other than these downers, anything goes. Ask them where they're from, how they know the host of the party, where they bought the lovely suit they're wearing, or hundreds of etceteras. The trick is to ask your prosaic question with passion to get the other person talking. Still feel a bit shaky on making the approach to strangers? Let's take a quick detour on our road to meaningful communicating. I'll give you 3 quickie techniques to meet people at parties, then 9 more to make small talk not so small.
Now, it end, guys. Thanks you for watching and listening.